Now in the afternoon.
And we've got him once again for our regular visit, Representative Jeremy Munson. A lot of stuff to talk about, sir. We went into break with this certification for cosmetology. I find it interesting in that if I compare it to the certificate you got to get to be a bartender, right? The government doesn't say you have to have a certificate to be a bartender. Just most bars that want to hire you want you to go to that 2-week, 3-week course, know how to make a drink or something before they'll hire you. Cosmetology, I presume, would be basically the same way. If you're going to go to the quick cuts or whatever it is, they're going to say, hey, you got to go through this class first. So we know you're not just doing bowl cuts. And if you're really bad at it, you'd be weeded out. How do we ever get, well, it's government. How do we ever get to the point we have this cosmetology thing? And is it really going to go away?
Well, I think that the Board of Cosmetology was started around concerns that people were using, straight razors to do shaves and such, which, by the way, there still are barbers. My barber, who's the governor's barber, uses a straight edge too when he's doing your neck and everything. But not all barbers do that. And if you're just trimming hair, especially when they use that safety electric trimmer, the need to protect public health, it just isn't there anymore. And then we've also seen this where people just style hair. They don't even cut hair. They just style hair for weddings. And then we found out that they also need to have thousands of hours and, they have to be basically a master barber to do that. And so we fought really hard to remove the requirements from the Board of Cosmetology that oversee these people that just style hair for weddings and people that do, because there's a big loophole for people that do makeup for movies and film. If you apply makeup at a store, you need a cosmetology license, but if you do it for movies, you don't. And so we just thought we should just get rid of the whole Board of Cosmetology, focus on the health of people, making sure that it's sanitary, letting the local municipality oversee that regulation. If they require a license, they can do that at the local level, but we shouldn't be doing that at the statewide level.
So did this get passed, or is this just on the cutting room floor, if you will?
No, so Representative Cal Barr and I have a bill that removes the Board of Cosmetology. We asked the Office of Legislative Auditor, which is a nonprofit internal organization that researches problems with government, and we asked them to look into the Board of Cosmetology and how effective are they at actually protecting health. And they came back and said, they don't protect health, and it really just increases the licensing for so many people. Hair braiders is another thing, especially in the African-American community. They braid hair. They're not even cutting it. They are required to have, board certification. People that do eyelash extensions and all that kind of stuff have to have these, licensing. And it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people, especially in the immigrant community, to get into this business. We should get rid of the licensing because it doesn't make sense.
I love this idea, but I also think you should sneak a line in there, the Al Travis amendment, that just as all women need to go in there and get their eyelashes and have somebody poking at their eye that close, which I would never do. I can't even touch my, if I ever have to get contacts, I'm blind, forget it. It's the same way every young man should have to have a straight razor shave. It's a rite of passage. You give up more vulnerability than you will ever in your whole life. I got a local barber here. Put a nice hot towel on your face. Oh, this is lovely. He pulls it off, puts the warm foam on there. You're like, this is great. Then a man pulls out a 6-inch knife and says, let me cut the hair on your face. I think we got to put something that it's a rite of passage. You know what I'm saying? Could we put that in?
That would be good. I also have a gal that cuts my hair with a straight edge too. So it's not just men.
No.
You're right. It does put you in your place knowing that it just, you watch those, what's that movie with the guy that slices next?
He's got the knife. Yeah. It's a whole nother thing. It's a thing that you go through and you're like, this is the greatest. And he has the warm foam, and it's like, man, this is fantastic. Then he pulled that knife out. I'm like, you know what? I think I can do this at home. I'm fine with anyway, we'll talk another time. You also had a post on your Facebook. We'll get the thought you think. Did I miss something? Were we paying $8,000 a day for the kennel around the Capitol? Are you kidding me?
I love the way that you call it a kennel. We were paying $8,000 a week. To put our legislators in a kennel. That's great. I love it. Yeah. Chain link fence around the Capitol was $8,000 a week for the past, over a year.
Well, 52 weeks. You're talking. Do the math, Al. $400,000 in. Yeah. You couldn't. I'm sorry. Well, I guess you're going to say you didn't know it was going to be that long. How in the world don't we just own that? You can buy it for that. The fence renting guy's like, hello, business has been good today.
Well, I really don't want to buy it because I don't want it to come back again. But I hope it never does. But yeah, it was a private company that the Capitol, I don't know whatever group decided to put us in a kennel.
Wow.
That they voted to have this private company come in, and we spent about $500,000 for the kennel for the past year.
Wow.
And there's probably some piddle pads around the Capitol too to keep lawmakers from wetting the floor.
That's funny. That's just amazing amount. I didn't realize it was that kind of money. $8,000 a week. Holy Hannah, just to rent the fence. I would think we'd find someplace for it around MnDOT locations. We probably have that kind of fencing we could use in Minnesota, but like you say, we probably didn't know what was going on. I was just done when you read that. I read it twice. Wow.
Yeah, if we would have put plywood up instead of chain link, we probably could have sold it for a profit and made money.
That's exactly right. All right, Representative Munson, if you'll hang on, I really want to talk about the Fauci posts because I'm just stunned by them. I think this is going to just be a game changer, and you've been posting on it. Can we talk about that after the break?
Absolutely.
Representative Munson on Al in the afternoon. I'm going to tell you that if the next bit we do doesn't get your blood boiling just a little bit, you're not paying enough attention. I've got Representative Jeremy Munson here. That's not the reason for that, by the way. That bad lead in, Al. But here's what I'm talking about. I'm going to read just the post that the Representative Munson put on. This is of one of 3,200. Be honest, none of us are going to read them all, but people are going through and finding some very interesting ones. Here's one that Anthony Fauci had written in the National Institute of Health from Anthony Fauci to Sylvia. Masks are really for infected people to prevent them from spreading infection to people who are not infected, rather than protecting uninfected people from acquiring the infection. The typical mask you buy in the drugstore is not really effective in keeping out viruses, which is too small and will pass through the material. It might, however, provide some slight benefit to keep out gross droplets if someone coughs or sneezes on you. I do not recommend that you wear a mask, particularly since you are going to a very low risk location. Your instincts are correct. Money is best spent on medical countermeasures such as diagnostics and vaccines. This he wrote in February 5th of 2020.
Of last year.
Of 2020.
Yeah.
This should make everyone mad. This is the same guy who then came out, everybody had to wear masks. And at one time, he literally spent his days wearing 2 masks at a time and trying to convince us that this was going to be the best thing. Who's pulling that guy's chain? He was the guy, the scientist everyone had to follow, and he was lying to us.
Yeah, that's what everybody was suspecting last year. In fact, so many scientists were caught having said masks didn't work, and the World Health Organization for 30 years said masks outside of a hospital setting are not effective at controlling the spread of a virus. And they had to backpedal on decades of real world experience in order to push the mask mandate. And then it became so hyper political that Fauci really stuck to that. Now, because of a Freedom of Information Act, we've got our hands on 3,200 emails sent from his official email account to people in all across industries, sharing Mark Zuckerberg's cell phone number. Hey, call Mark Zuckerberg. He wants to do videos on Facebook promoting masks and the lockdown measures. This would be really great. It's better than TV. All this stuff on the emails. It's amazing the coordinated effort to sell the American public on this. And it's all out there in the public.
You're, I presume, friends. I shouldn't do that. You back Senator Jensen in his gubernatorial run. I've seen you put a thumbs up or something on one of his posts. Would I be correct to say that you're behind him?
Yeah, I've been hoping that he would run for the past year. Yeah.
Okay. So does he not deserve and demand an absolute apology from these knuckleheads that tried to take his actual doctor's license away? Pretty much, branded him as a lunatic. And he was absolutely right 100%. Everything that thing said, he read it out loud, and everybody ripped him a new one. You've got a lot of flack for sitting there and trying to talk the actual numbers and what's going on. This should make people mad as hell.
Yeah, people are mad. I still receive emails from Facebook because of, I'm a legislator and I've got the blue check mark on Facebook. So they're kind enough to reach out to me before pulling my post down. But they pulled a post down just recently that I had posted back, in April of last year about that specific thing that Fauci just wrote about, how viruses can go through masks and maybe it protects from droplets. But they took a post down of mine, and just like I think it was January of this year, they were still making corrections. And yeah, it's frustrating. Facebook can do what they want for censorship. I support the right to do that, but vindicating Dr. Jensen, going after his medical license 4 times now. And yeah, I think he would be vindicated, although I've talked to Democrats. I talked to a local Democrat senator who thinks that, everything's just been evolving. The ideas and the science has been evolving over the past year. So no, he's not vindicated. He was wrong then. Things have changed now. It just doesn't make any sense.
Not in the things we're talking about. We've had masks since, I don't know, early 1900s. They've been wearing masks when they do operations. They realize what could happen. There have been study after study done on them. It's kind of like this thing, 6 feet was the answer until 3 feet was okay, because we found out that was from like the Spanish flu days, and some doctor just made up 6 feet would be good. There's no science behind it. And how do you get to the point that he knew what he knew, changed his mind, then look at the science, and we're right back where we started from? There was no science in the middle.
Yeah, well, if people want to go out to my page, Representative Jeremy Munson, you'll find a link to a public website that has all 3,200 emails from Dr. Fauci, and you can go through there from his March Madness picks to some personal emails to some stuff has been redacted, like Mark Zuckerberg's cell phone number is redacted, but you'll find a lot of really interesting emails to see what was happening at government during the time that this pandemic hit.
Well, and it'll be worth the read if you got the 3,200. I think somewhere in your post you're asking people take a picture and put it online to the ones that strike you as interesting. And I think it's only fair. I didn't realize it was a FOIA request. I'm glad it wasn't somebody got into his email and set him out. This all if he's picking NCAA tournament on his work computer. Good for him and his boss, I guess. That's up to them, not on me. We got to get talk little local legislative action. Is there any movement whatsoever? I believe you're on the board of figuring out what the new lines are going to be drawn. Have you guys even met? And what about the committees you're on? Has anything been done since we stopped doing work?
Well, so I am on the committee for redistricting. We have met all of 1 hour the entire year. So we plan on meeting throughout the summer to help redraw the lines and at least put policies forward on how we think the courts should redraw the lines if it does go to the courts to redo that. But we got all the information from the census, and we'll be the most Republican seats in Minnesota will be getting larger as far as territory, because we're going to be adding more people into our districts, and so that'll be interesting to redraw the lines for everyone.
All right, so that will get that. Does that have a timetable that has to be done? I presume it does. People can start running for office here soon.
Yeah, it has to be done by February of next year, which is when, if you count back from the primary, when you have to legally live in the district. So we don't want people running for seats that they don't live in, even though there are sitting legislators that don't live in their districts, unfortunately.
But you have to get that done in time because I presume for a fact it's going to go to the courts, right? Has there ever been once a redistricting or whatever said, makes sense, let's go with it, that it's got to go to court and have the judges figured out, right? I mean, isn't that the normal procedure?
Yeah, it has been solved by the legislature, but I don't know that there's been a time with a divided legislature that it hasn't gone to the courts. Minnesota is the only divided legislature in the country, so it's pretty rare to have one body under House or Republican and one body under Democrat control.
So that'll be interesting. All right, and then let's do this. What do you think? Has anything else gotten done on any of the other committees you've heard on? They're supposed to have the spreadsheets, exciting stuff, out last Friday. I was under the impression they didn't have it done by Monday or Tuesday. Is any of that work getting done?
Yeah, so the budget is really coming down to really a negotiation to end the emergency powers of the governor. And from a high level, for those listening, it's really about how much you're willing to buy your freedom. Which is, we're ending the emergency so that we can restore your freedom and not have the governor be able to unilaterally write laws. And really, the governor or Gazelka and Hortman and the governor are deciding on how much to give up, right? How much Republicans should increase in spending in order to restore people's freedom in the state.
Well, aren't they on a daily basis losing a little bit of ground on that? I'm not ripping on the governor. He wants to hang on. I get it. But I think we had 2 days in a row with no deaths, and we're under like 150 people that are getting found to have the virus. We're under 1.5% effective rate of people that actually have it, so that we find new. I mean, these are all the matrices they gave us back in the day of Fauci with what we had to be. I think it was under 5% for 2 weeks, then opened things up. We're now opened up and it's going down. What does he hold? What's the emergency other than getting money from the federal government?
Well, we have the eviction moratorium that's in place, although that is in place federally, so we could lift ours and not run into problems. There's a thing I emailed you about this morning where last March, Republicans and Democrats agreed to give the governor and his commissioners the ability to retroactively change Minnesota law and 17 chapters of law back to March of last year. So they still have time to do that. They have to do that before the emergency ends. So if the Department of Health was sharing your medical information against Minnesota state law, they can actually change that portion of the law that give themselves authority to do so. And it was just broad authority. I voted against the bill. It was horrible, but very few of us did vote against it. But that's still in effect, and that would have to go away too.
I'm sorry I didn't hit that earlier, but I presume what'll happen there is if that were to take effect, it would take a matter of moments for you guys to throw that back up and say, "Don't worry, Human Services just did this epidemic, it's over." And you'd pull it right back and make it new law. And I don't know how anyone would stand up for it because it's existing law. I mean, it didn't go through the process to change it. I get the feeling we're getting near the end of this epidemic. It's going to get harder and harder for them to hang on to those powers.
Yeah, I would think so too. I'm not supportive of buying our freedom or buying something that we should already have, right? And that we should momentarily have anyways.
Completely agree. And again, I think if we learn anything when this is all said and done, I trust there'll be a movement. I presume and I don't like messing with the Constitution, but I presume it's a constitutional thing to change it over that executive powers work, but they have to be affirmative and not the negative to get rid of them. I think that's the only way to do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, supporting a bill like the Never Again bill, which actually changes Chapter 12, the Emergency Powers Act, so that the governor won't have the ability to unilaterally write law again, I think is really important. There's some milder provisions like that, which require the legislature after a certain period of time to positively or, affirm those powers, as opposed to what we have right now, which is the legislative veto. But I don't support the governor having these powers at all, especially with being able to connect to the legislature through Zoom. In just a moment's notice, we can get together and pass emergency laws. And we've proven that the governor shouldn't have this authority. He's abused it.
We got to talk about it again next week because we're running out of time. But I love the idea you're talking that this thing might have changed everything. Zoom might change the way we do our government. And you're right. What do you need executive powers for? Call us together. We'll all hook together on Zoom at 6:00. Meet you there, and we'll make our votes. Representative Munson, thanks for being on the program.
Thank you, Al.
Back after this on